Oh, okay, mic's working. This is such a weird thing to wear. I feel like Madonna. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of explain what I'd be talking about today. I wanted to talk about sort of where I came from, how I came with Afrodeutsche, my musical influences, and sort of how I write and how I construct a track and how I put together a live show. So just a little bit, just a few things to talk about. So my name's Henrietta Smith Roller. I was born in the UK. I lived in a place called Devon, Exmouth, a small town in the West Country in the UK. And we were the only black family there, and this was the 80s. And I basically spent all of my youth down there, and I ended up moving to London and worked in the music industry and looked after artists. I don't know if you know a group called The Knife. I worked with them and worked with Moby and Roixop and that kind of thing, and I was sort of behind the scenes working in management. And then I fell in love with a jazz musician, and I moved to Manchester, and that's when I started making music and sort of getting into this thing of making music. And yeah, so jazz musician, music. Manchester was like a really brilliant place for people who were into the arts or into creating things. It was a very open place. And so I ended up being in a band with Graham Massey from 808 State, and we were called Sisters of Transistors, and we played organs and synths, and I made the costumes, and they were big black hoods, and we played Baroque music on organs and things, and it was off its head, and it was brilliant, but I didn't know how to play piano, so I was learning and teaching myself how to play keys during being in the band. And that's kind of where I got my first in on using Ableton, which is what I use now. When I was growing up in Devon, my mum used to clean houses. And when I finished school, I'd walk down to meet her after school, and I was like 6 years old. And the woman whose house she used to clean was called Isabel Levi, and she had these amazing long nails, and she was a piano teacher. And I used to ask to play her piano. And I started making music from like being really, really little, but never had a piano, and sort of all had friends that had pianos in their houses, and I made friends with them so I could play the piano at theirs. So kind of piano's kind of been the core of everything that I've been making. So I just wanted to play a few influences. I don't know if you know a few of these. Can you see this? Is this all on there? Brilliant. All grey and exciting. From playing the piano and sort of being into film and being into music in that way, I ended up writing for film and documentary. And I'm heavily influenced by Bernard Herrmann. I don't know if you know Bernard Herrmann. Anyone new? This is Bernard Herrmann. Okay. Can I turn it up a bit, please? So this is a theme from Psycho, the film Psycho, which is just the best. And he uses loads of strings, and the arrangements are really all over the place, and so I end up sort of bringing that into my live stuff and stuff that I write for live. Another beautiful film is Vertigo, Hitchcock, Bernard Herrmann again. I could just listen to this all day. I won't, but I will. So good. Yeah, so film-wise, that's kind of where my influence come from, with arrangement, that kind of thing. When it comes to sort of more electronic music, Underground Resistance, Ortega are big influences for me. And I'll talk about a little bit more about Afrodeutsche, but there was something happened when in Canada. I went to play in Canada, and I was supporting Marie Davidson and Underground Resistance. And I'd finished DJing, and I'd gone downstairs, I had beer all over my hands, and I was like, I need a bathroom, I need to wash my hands. And I just grabbed a piece of ice from an ice bucket. I was washing my hands, walking down the corridor, and then I just saw Mad Mike walking towards me from underground resistance, and I just threw it, dried my hands, and went, "We weren't supposed to meet like this." You know, it was just really like bonkers meeting these guys, and we ended up chatting after the show, and I got to tell them about the time I played in Ghana. I went to Ghana for the first time, and I'm going to play one of the tracks I wrote on the way to Ghana. And yeah, I was telling them about my experience in Ghana, having never been there before, and that's where my family are from. And I played at a street festival, and I wore my UR t-shirt, and I played this. Afro-Germanic by Underground Resistance. I don't know if you know it. Anyone? All day long. Okay. So, and their reaction to it was, "Girl, you took us home." Just like that, head fell off. So there's this like innate connection that I felt like we had, and when I met them, it kind of became realized because they'd never heard of Afrodeutsche, they'd never heard of me before, and when I sort of explained how it all came about, I then found out that some of them have Ghanaian heritage. So Afrodeutsche came from me looking for my dad. I've never met my dad before, and I met lots of people in London who knew him, some people who grew up with him, and they told me that he had actually moved to Germany in the late 50s on a scholarship. He was an artist, and he'd come here to paint. And I was like, well, how comes a Ghanaian man had been invited to Germany in the late 50s? Turns out Germans and the Russians, before the French and the British, colonized Ghana from the 1500s. So there's been this real connection with Germany and Ghana specifically for a really, really long time. So explaining this to them was just so cosmic because I felt like underground resistance and Drexia had sort of created this language that I understood in music. And it was just really cosmic to sort of share that with them. And yeah, I thought I'd tell you about it. Okay, so I write piano pieces. I can't read music though. So it's all, I don't know if you can see the keys. Can you show the keys? Can you see these? So I came up with a system. It's not a very good system, but it's a numbering system of where I start. So I might start with 1 in that track, and then I can find my way and I can remember it that way. So the piano for me is much more of like an intuitive instrument. It's a percussion instrument. It also has like every range. So it's like a bass instrument as well. But yeah, I write piano things, and ended up writing for a documentary that has been nominated for a BAFTA award. Don't know if anyone knows what the BAFTAs are. They're like the British Oscars for film and television. So it's kind of like the highest accolade you could get for, working on film. So I thought I'd tell you about that as well. So one of the pieces that I wrote really early on when I decided I had kind of the courage to record what I was playing, is a piece called Nude Mood, which I put into my new live show, which I just did at CTM at Berghain. So I wanted to play you this. And it's dark and it's moody, like me. Here we go. Oh, and it's recorded really badly. kind of think when when it comes to sort of writing music, to be really honest with yourself and try not to judge yourself while you're doing it. I think that's something that I've not struggled with, but had to have a word with myself when I'm doing it. And I was really low when I made this one. I was living with someone, we were in a relationship, but we were separate, we were living in the same home. And I made this in a room while he was in another room. And it's like, for me now, this is like sort of the language of my history. So I had to put it into the live set. It was recorded really badly in that I just put reverb on everything, but it was all improvised and then sort of layered the piano above it and and in between. So it's a really personal track for me. Nude Mood, spelt wrong. I spell everything wrong. So I wanted to show you a piece of work that I worked on a few years ago that I performed live at a place called the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester. And it was 6 different artists, all preparing their own separate part, like scoring part of this film, Baraka. I don't know if anyone knows Baraka. It's a documentary, you know, Baraka. This is going to take ages to load because my computer doesn't like it. Don't save. Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to just go through a little bit of process and a little bit of like, a few ideas that I had while I was writing for it. I kind of think that writing for film and documentary is really helpful when you're writing for yourself because you kind of end up coming up with different processes and different ways of doing things. For this, obviously, there was already a score. There was already music for the film. It's going to take ages. And so my process was to not listen to what had already been done. It was really important that I didn't know what had already been created. And I ended up watching my section over and over again. And obviously you find when there isn't any music, it's really hard to find a narrative. And I don't know if you know this film, but it's a documentary, so it's lots of different scenes from all over the world with not a clear narrative. Unless you've got the music, it kind of doesn't make as much sense. Oh, here we go. Nope. No. Technical. Oh, there it is. So I wanted to show you, I'll show you the beginning of this as well, because I ended up using quite a lot of orchestral instruments within Ableton. And let's get the video up here, and then start from here. Here we go. gives you an idea of like how it just chops from different scenes and there's really a narrative and you kind of need to create that with the sounds and like kind of the soundscape. Okay, so you get kind of an idea what was going on there. So I wanted to show you part of the film where there's a guy walking down the street and he's in costume, and how I kind of thought it would be a good idea to sort of, you know, make sense of what was going on in the scene. Let's get this up again. No, let's start from here. Where are we? Nope. Other screen. Just so you get an idea of what was happening in the scene. When the guy is walking along, I don't know if many, do you use Ableton or Logic or, yeah? Um, I find out, luckily, you can use visuals in Ableton, which means you can just map things like, you know, what's the word? Can't think of it. I really wanted to sort of emphasize what he was doing with his feet. So I not sampled a heartbeat, my own heartbeat, but had got a sample of a heartbeat. And so you can kind of see here, I just solo that out. And you can kind of see here that when he lands his foot, you get the sound of a heartbeat. And I'd layered that with another sample from a drum machine, Vengeance, drum pack called Vengeance. So good. And then another sample from Vengeance, just to build that drama, but also along with the rest of the piece, it's the percussion. Cameras moving up his body by bringing the music down. Another thing that I love in Ableton is granulator. Anyone? Granulator, so much fun. And near the end of this piece, it moves to scenes of lots of people moving around. So what I did was I used a synth pad, like a bass synth pad, and then ran it through granulator, mapped the granulator thingy-jig. I don't know the technical language for all these things. Packs, doors, blah. I mapped everything to the granulator thing, and then just let everything run, and then created lots of different samples for myself to use. So I'll just give an example of what ended up being used and where it was used. So, see. Okay. And what I love about granulator is if you don't record what you're doing, you'll never get it back in the same way again. So it's really like you can just ride it and play with it for a really long time, have a really nice time, and then be able to go back and find like little pieces that just work really well, you know, layered and with other parts of whatever it is you're doing. Cool story. So another one. And this is all using the same sample, like the same pads, and just playing with the gains and just sort of doing it live, but recording it at the same time. So I'll show you where I used these samples. No. Screen. Thank you. So here they are down here. I'll solo these. Okay. He's awake. So that was a. I had to be really brave with that piece because it was performed live, and we had six other different artists. There were artists from the Royal Northern College of Music, classically trained artists, and I'm there with an MS 2000 synth, Ableton, and like all this shit. And I had no idea how to sync the music with the film. So like I learned very quickly you need to do that kind of prep if you're going to be playing live. And we rehearsed it with all the lights on, and the conductor from the other like orchestra was right on the other side of the stage, and he was giving me the proper orchestral count, and I saw him. And then when it got to the show, all I had was the light from the screen, and I couldn't see him. So it was literally like can't see him, can't see him, can't see him, can't see him, spacebar. So it was just the most terrifying experience, but it all went okay. But it just taught me that sometimes you need to do a little bit more prep, with your tech before you go into these things. Otherwise, it all could go to shit. So I wanted to show you how I usually construct a track. A lot of my music is emotional for me. It's more about processing what's going on with me at the time. And there's a track that's on the album called Haya. Where are you? Show me Haya. There it is. Don't save. And Haya stands for, it sounds like it's like a really intelligent word. It isn't. I made it up. I was going through a breakup, and I was in my new flat on my own, and I didn't have all these things that I used to have, like cutlery, plates, and stuff, and I wanted to sort of create like a new me. I wanted to start again, and I found myself online, like Habitat, IKEA, eBay, ASOS, Argos, Haya. Stands for all the places where I went shopping. So it sounds like it's like, yeah, something else, but it's basically me trying to find myself again. And I don't know if you know it or if you've heard it, but I'll play it through and then kind of get an idea. No, I won't. Yes, I will. Play it. Basically me crying all the way. Oh, thanks. That. Um, it's basically me crying all the way through this track. That I'll just play it. Just play it. So this is me crying. I literally was putting these shelves up, and I was just bawling and wailing, and I was like, I need to make some music. And the track literally started with these, and then I needed some drums, and used my favourite again, was Vengeance. Don't know which one to solo. Here we go. And I love reverb, a lot of reverb. And so what I did was I used 808, 909, and some Vengeance drums, and just what I needed to teach myself is if you're going to write, you need to have a click when it comes to melody. But I didn't with this, so it all had to be kind of like improvised. So it's really wonky, like the whole track's really wonky for me. So after that, I started, writing with a click and doing the drums first before I did the melody, so that I could layer things, because it becomes really difficult if you don't have a tempo guide. So this was a really challenging track to do, to finish. There you go. Okay, and then there's like a part near the end where I introduce synths. And as you've probably noticed, I'm pretty dark when it comes to melody. It's really quiet. Is it still there? So I really like layering melodies, layering drums. I don't know how I do it. It's just very emotional, like reacting to how I'm feeling. And then when I do this track live, I use the Novation X Station preset number 287, which is like let's find it. That's not it. 246. So close. Okay, so that's usually what I do when it comes to live, is I will have most of the track in the backing. I don't have enough hands, and then do all of like the emotive stuff with the synths or with the drums, kind of thing. We all okay? We having a nice time? I'm having a nice time. Okay, so live sets. Okay, so I just played at CTM. I premiered my new live show. It's called Afrodeutsche. It means Office of the Soul. I have been in therapy for a really long time, and I had a moment in therapy where my therapist said, you need to write down what's going on, you need to make this list so you can sort of, deal with these things. And I don't write very well, and I kind of thought, you know what, the way I'm going to do this is with music. And I listened to a lot of classical music, and I decided to write my own requiem. So requiem, translated and then retranslated, means the office of the soul. So I abbreviated it and called it Afrodeutsche, Office of the Soul. So I'm going to find it. Can anyone see it? Where is it? There it is. Don't save. So this was like a really challenging set for me to do, because we introduced visuals, and done by an artist friend of mine, Batty. And do I have any of the visuals to play? Maybe I can try and find some. So when I put a live set together, I don't work in this view, which is session view. Thanks, I always get them confused. Session view. I work in a linear way, which is arrangement view. Come on, arrangement view. And I'll drop all of the tracks into different audio tracks, and then I'll double them up, like, what do you call it? Double track them in some way, and then I will spend time like EQing each side, and depending where I want to send it in the room. I'll show you this part. So I used to sing in bands, but this was the first time I decided to sing live, and I decided that the beginning of the set I was going to improvise it. So what was I thinking? It's like CTM opening Berghain. I'm going to improvise. So what I did was I recorded some of my vocals before, and then decided that when I got there, I'd see how I felt and how I would sing with them. So I'll play you this piece. So it began with Nude Mood that I played you at the beginning. I love reverb. So I was improvising different melodies above this, with loads of reverb. It was terrifying. So what I ran into was because I hadn't recorded my vocals for years, and forgot that there you do have to have like a process to it. I ended up having to sort of like edit flat notes out and that kind of thing. So the way I did it was I literally just took the volume out, and it kind of made quite a nice sketch because it was like, oh, I need to fill this space or like fill this moment. So it wasn't all in tune on the night, so it was almost like, right, I really got to like push this, and somehow it was like an emotional purge, singing, you know. Um, there's a good bit near the end. What was it? Okay, you get the idea. So my thinking around playing at Berghain in this way was, people kind of see Berghain as a church. It's kind of a place of worship. People come from all over the world and they come to this huge building. And I kind of wanted to turn it into a church again, like a place where you can kind of hear the acoustics and sort of not necessarily be listening to anything electronic. And then, so that's when I was thinking about choral stuff. So I tend to think about the space I'm playing in when I'm writing. I think it kind of worked. It was kind of bonkers. So there was a lot of thinking about the live show and like theory and all about Afrodeutsche. We had people walking around the audience with joss sticks. I hate joss sticks, but these ones are good. They were frankincense and myrrh, usually used in sort of like religious festivals, and cocoa, which is like the biggest export from Ghana. So people walking around, you know, creating a mood. And I get really nervous playing live. So I wanted to sort of take back my identity. So I made a costume and I just covered my face with a black veil, a bit like a fencing mask. And it really helped until I was sweating, crazy sweating on stage, and then I couldn't see shit. So don't recommend doing that. But it was like a way of having kind of like a wall or like a shield between me and everyone who was there. It was bonkers. So I wanted to play one of the pieces that I did in the show. And let's do Over the Sahara. So this was the track that I wrote when I was on my way to Ghana, and I went to get on the flight and they booked me in business class and I didn't know. And I literally just got in and I sat down. I was like, this is the first time I've gone to Ghana, and I'm sat in business class, and I got my laptop out. I thought, right, I need to make some music now. And you know when you have the screens where they tell you where you're flying over? I was over the Sahara Desert. So as I looked out the window and I was like, this is crazy. And I made this piece. It's called Over the Sahara. And let's get the right sound. Preset number 106 on the Novation X Station 25. Okay, here we go. over the Sahara. Thanks. So I wanted to show you a little bit how I did that on a flight with no controller, just the laptop. Where are you? Can anyone see it? There it is. Don't save. So what I ended up doing was I just used Vengeance, the drum pack, made kind of like a bass line out of the drums here. Okay, there we go. So I dropped the different samples of drums that I wanted to use, and I wanted to kind of create a melody out of drums, and then just played around and just tried a few things. That's not right. No. No. Cool. So made different drum patterns here, just using the keyboard on the laptop. And then I ran everything through Echo. Oh yeah. No. Ran everything through Echo, and it was another point when I was just improvising. So it was, where are you? Are you here? Yeah. So I just moved to Live 10 from using Live 9, and the introduction to Live 10 was this Echo, which I'd never used before, and it's a really like beautiful tool to use when you don't have like a controller or anything, because you can literally just ride whatever you've kind of like just like put in there. So I just started with the drums with this one. So let's have a listen. Okay, where are you? You here? Okay, so these are the ones that the bassy sounding drums that I just literally just improvised with the Echo and came up with this. It was pretty good. It was really good fun. Over the Sahara on a plane in business class. Yeah, and so then I had the track without any what am I talking about? It didn't have any synths or anything, and obviously, like I love synths, so I was kind of not inspired by it, but was thinking about Keith from Prodigy, and I was just thinking about how much, like when I was growing up, I just loved those synth pads, and how the fact that everyone who was making these bass lines and all these synth pads, they weren't classically trained, so a lot of it was like one-fingered bass lines and like just building chords. So I was just like, move myself. And it just moves that way, always like really easy. But it's just, sometimes I feel like putting synth pads in things is my way of putting emotion into something, because drums can be quite technical or quite rigid or whatever. So that's Over the Sahara. And I was going to play some of another live set that I did at Sonar Festival. I almost said, am I talking too much? Just like, no, this is what you're supposed to do. Don't save. I played at Sonar Festival last year, and it was a different live set to the one. Did that just crash? Did it? No, it didn't. Cool. Slightly different. It was much more dance, like upbeat kind of thing. And there's a track called Time Lounge, which hasn't been released, but I absolutely love playing. So I just thought I'd just play this one for you. But it's one where I stitch myself up, because I play the bass line all the way through it, and it just makes your hand go like this. So I thought I'd do that for you today. 218 preset, Novation Next Station 25. Okay. No. Dear choir. Here we go. One See? Gone wrong. Wait, where is it? Okay, so you kind of get the idea. I have a really nice time playing bass lines and playing synths in the live set. I just wanted to show you how I write down my live set list. Presets, track names, and the numbers of the keys that I need to play. So it's like, it's not really technical, just a lot of numbers and writing stuff down. Okay, where are we going from here? Oh, how much time have we got left? Tom, where's Tom? 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 Okay, where are we? Does anyone have any questions? Cool. Okay. I think I've kind of gone over most of the things I really wanted to talk about. Just influences, how I put a set together, sort of how I write. No one has any questions at all? Oh, hooray! Okay, cool. Hi. Hi. Yeah. Okay. So how I play the keys when I'm playing live. So really good tip. There's a stuff called spike tape. This yellow tape here. You can see it in the dark when you're in a dark venue. So I spend a really nice time cutting tiny little bits of spike tape and placing them on the keys. So on my set list, for instance, let's see, for amped 3, preset 106, begin with key number 1. And that's literally how I do it. I mean, it doesn't always work, but it's like, for me, it's like a really good guide, because it's always very different when you go to play live after doing a sound check or being at home. So yeah, I literally write down the number, start with that one. Yeah, cool. Welcome. Hi. Vengeance, yeah. It's actually a track that I'm going to be releasing on Scam. We're doing an EP. And it was another purge of like what was going on with me. I can play it. Should I play it? Yeah. Okay, cool. Is it in here? I don't know. Um, guess it is. 187. Okay, yeah. 187. Let's see. That's not 187. Okay. So this was like a proper purge, and all I wanted to do was use drums. I didn't want any kind of like melody going on. And it's named after the drum pack. It's not on. That's kind of like how I sort of came up with Vengeance. It was a purge, proper purge. I want to play drums like this. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah. Mm. I was. Guess what? I was kind of the whole album is like another purge of like what was going on. I was like, guess what? I'm leaving. Do you know what I mean? It was like I need to like just get rid and like start again. And so like the improvised stuff is just me being really honest. And I think I actually shared that track with some people in Berlin, and then they ended up doing a workshop around it. Yeah, it was like I forgot about that. Yeah, guess what? So yeah, it was very much about just being really honest and not being very strict in Ableton. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you can be quite rigid and not have any, sort of life into it. So yeah, it was improvising. Yeah, cool. Hi. Do I ask for anyone's opinion of my music? No. No, 'cause I get like this. It's funny, people will send me their music and I'll listen, but then I feel like my opinion shouldn't matter because our ears are different, what we're thinking when we're making it is different. Production level, that's a whole nother thing, but I kind of see it as like, it's yours, you decide, you made it, it's good. Do you know what I mean? So I tend not to share my music with anyone until I play it out because I just don't listen to what I do take on what people say when they hear things for the first time, but it's not part of my process to share things. It's like super personal. Like, yeah, yeah, cool. Hi. What's the difference between producing live tracks and personal tracks? It kind of started to change within my process because I was making music before I was playing live. And so when I was making tracks, I wasn't thinking about the live situation. So what ended up happening is I had to sort of learn how to master a set, and you suddenly find different parts of a track don't come through in the way you want them to come through, and you might try and balance another drum machine with that, or maybe another synth with that. They definitely affected one another, and so now when I'm writing for live specifically, I do have the live set in mind, whereas before I didn't know what I was doing, just write music and hopefully it will work out kind of thing. So it was, yeah, they kind of fed off each other. Yeah. Welcome. Hi. Oh yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So another feedback thing that starts happening, which is really good, is like when you're writing for someone else and there is a narrative and they have ideas that they want, you're working for them, and what it does is the process is kind of changed, your thinking kind of changes, and it feeds back into your own personal writing. I forgot what the question was. Yeah, yeah. Exactly. So like so what happens is you, or what I have to do is I try not to get too attached to the things that I'm writing for someone else, because there is a back and forth. You'll send off a piece, they'll be like, right, okay, I want more of this, or da da da, and they'll send it back with the notes, and then you have to accept what they want and just do it, and realize that you're working for someone else, but always keeping a little bit of yourself still in there. So it kind of, I quite enjoy that back and forth with them, because it takes you out of what you think you know about music and about your sort of processes and how you write. So that was a good question. I like that one. Yeah. Hi. Oh, that's a good story. Yeah. So there's a warehouse in Manchester. Is it Hope? Not Hope Works. Anyway, there's a warehouse in Manchester. It's got lots of studios. It had a club in the basement. My rehearsal space was in there. And I went to the club night and I got bored, and then went upstairs to my room and was just playing on the drums and and having a nice time. And people started like coming in and like chilling. And my friend Duncan said, "Oh, Hen, put one of yours on." I was like, "No, not doing it." And eventually did. Put the track on, ran, sat behind the drums, pretended it wasn't mine, just like do do do, this kind of thing. And then this guy comes up to me afterwards and he just said, "Was that yours?" I was like, "Yeah, it's my ode to Bernard Herrmann. It's this, that, and the other." Da, da, da. And he left. And then my friend said to me, "Do you know who that was, don't you?" I was like, "No." It's Andy Maddox from Scam. And he emailed me maybe like a week later and was like, "I really like your stuff. Can you send me some more?" And I was like, "Nope." No, I didn't. I was like, "Yes." And then just was sending music for about a year. And then he, yeah, put the record out a year later. Yeah. It was a fun party, that. Yeah, it's cool. Anyone else? No? Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if I maybe I can open up a new live set. New live set. Don't save. Just gonna. This is a good test to see if I can remember, because that was a while ago. So if I just, so I usually start with just putting in a drum rack. Find some drums. sub stuff. Yes. Drop them in. I'm really impatient with music. I'm like, if it works like there and then, it just works. Let's just drop that in. Oh, yeah. Cool. Awkward. Okay. Get some hits in there. It's a lot. I'm getting a kind of ringing on here. I don't know if it's this. Is that better? Can you hear that? Ooh, okay. Let's see if I can remember. This is a real test. So, okay. Let's arm that up. Draw the drums in. Give it and then what I'll do is I'll just name it 1 in capitals, please. I want to add some more drums in there too. I also like to just drop in a 909 because I really like the claps on it. So let's put it in there. And something that's almost like I guess it's a trick. When you copy and paste drums you've already made into a different drum pack. So let's see where that hits in the 909. Another thing I used to do in the live set, I used to map the drums that I had in the set to the reverb and the delay and play with them live. So then you end up like, so these dry, wet, and then and that kind of like helped in like the live sense of like feeling like you're actually doing something. I forgot what the question was. What were we talking about again? Oh yeah. Sorry? Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. So, Pax granulator. I think one of the people who made Ableton built granulator. It's a cool story. Okay, remember how to do this. Is it this one? Is it? Oh, what? Okay. Oh yeah. Let's stop this. So this is what it's like in the studio, loads of silence and talking to oneself. Is it this one? No. There it is. Hi. Okay. So let's try these drums. Okay. On this. Is this gonna work? That's not how I did it. I think you have to do it as audio. You have to turn them into audio. This will work. It's so transparent now. I feel really exposed. Okay. So we have. Oh, it's gone. Come back. Here we go. Let's just find some audio. Let's find audio. That's better. So I get out of this. Screens. Here we go. So I like to build like different samples. I have a radio show, and I like to theme what I'm doing. And last year was all the year before last was all themed around Blade Runner. And so I like used some Vangelis stuff, but collected like NASA samples and things. Some German stuff. Where is it? Let's put da, 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 da. There we go. Good. Ooh. Yeah. Cool. Okay. I know what I'm doing wrong. You drop the sample into granulator. Oh, anyone? Okay. Where did you go? Keep disappearing. There we go. I would say talk amongst yourselves, but okay. And then with the controller, arm it. Why aren't you arming? It's gone. Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Not this one. This is brilliant. Thanks, guys. Okay, channel number 8. Wow. Okay, now I want my. Thank you. Really needed that. Okay. So, yeah, you just play with the different parameters. Let's move it over here. So you spend a lot of time alone doing this, you know? It just like fills the time. It feels like it's the worst demo anyone's ever done. It's like, here's how not to use it. So I'm not going to go through it anymore because it's just kind of embarrassing, but it's a really good tool to use if you want to just completely change what the audio was doing before. And I did it before. You record what you do as you go along and then use those as samples. That was really embarrassing. Cool. Anyone else? Otherwise, I'll finish because, yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't until I started using the Echo. It has a really nice reverb in there, but I just used to use standard Ableton reverb, different packs. The Old Hall, it's a good one. Church, another good one. But yeah, just the packs that are just the things that are in Ableton. I'm really lazy. Presets. Yeah, cool. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm done. Okay.